All right, welcome everyone. I'm going to go straight into today's class. We are talking about design and where to start from when you are designing. All right, so I'm going to share my, can you see my Canvas screen?
Yes.
Yes, please.
So things to do before you design, all right? And it's not just things to do, it's also things you want to consider, okay? There are quite a number of things. I'm going to go over them one by one. And also, because I mentioned earlier, there are two ways you can learn as a designer. One is by me teaching you, and two is by practice, okay? And I said earlier, learning by practice is going to earn you much more because you learn better, okay? So I'm going to teach you how to learn, right? I'll teach you how to learn more as a designer and also how I learned. All right. So while we're going over this, I'll do a Google search and all those things. So you understand it's basically my personal journey on how I grew up as a designer. Okay. So I want you to pay as much attention as possible. All right. So the Gestalt principle, in case you've never heard of it, maybe I've heard about this before.
I've heard about the word gestalt, but not
the principle
related to art.
Okay. So basically, Gestalt principle focuses specifically on how design elements are grouped together. All right. It's very in depth. If you want to go really in depth into understanding the every single principles, but it's based on the premise that humans naturally perceive objects as organized patterns and objects. Okay. So when we see things, we naturally group those things. Okay. So look at this image, for example. Naturally, our eyes will group all the blues as part of we would naturally group all the blues as part of the same type of element, and then the yellows and the blues. And it's kind of like how infographics work, okay, where we have to use a key, where we say the yellow lines mean this, the green lines mean that, okay. And infographics work because the Gestalt principle just helps us understand why infographics work. And it's because our eyes naturally perceive objects as organized patterns, okay, and organized objects. So your job as a designer is to help your viewer by distilling information into a manner that is as organized as possible so that your viewer is able to receive the information with as much ease as possible. Okay? All right. So now, and the Gestalt principles are categorized into 5 categories. There's proximity, there's similarity, major categories, there's continuity, closure, and connectedness. All right. And if you think about them independently and relate to your design, you bring out something that people love. Because of time, I won't be able to go in depth into all the Gestalt principles because we have many other things to consider and the time that we have is not enough. So I just want to let you know about this. So I'll share some resources on the group that you can use to learn more about the principles. All right. So, but if you just look clearly, if you look here, right, you can see similarity, for example, right? The similarity of these lines. Okay. And somehow the forms, the grouping of the form, the shapes of forms, okay? Our eyes just form a relationship with them, okay, because of how they are grouped and they are similar elements. For example, if the elements weren't similar, we won't be able to see them as a group. So your job as a designer, sometimes when you're designing forms and shapes and stuff, is to create some form of similarity with elements. And when that similarity helps your viewer associate those things together, okay? Another way that Gestalt principle works is in symmetry, all right? And many times, I'm sure you must have seen something like this where you can see literally two things at the same time, where you can see two people's face and then a face, okay? But that's not necessarily what this is about. It's about symmetry. When you have the exact same thing with one dividing axis or multiple dividing axes where things on both left and right are exactly equal. So if it's an angle, you ensure that the angle is exactly equal. If it's number of units of an item, you ensure that the number of units of that item are exactly equal. All right. Figure, okay, or round. You can see how this shape just has its way of feeling connected, okay. And then closure. For example, well, okay, if you look at this shape, right, you can see that all the shapes gather together, right? Even though they are individual elements, because of how they are gathered together, they make it look as if there's a circle inside here, right? You can see this. But in actual fact, what you have here is basically cones that are arranged in different sizes, different angles, and positioned differently. But when you position them in this way, it's able to create some form of illusion of an invisible circle inside. All right. If you look at this, for example, right, see continuation. Because we have a black circle with a white outline, all right, and then we have another black rectangle outside, it just gives it a feel of continuation as though the black circle continues. All right. So let me show you how that might work in Canva if you are designing. I'm trying to. Okay, so let me create a new design. Okay. And when you understand this, it's going to help you with some things that seem like illusions. Okay. Let me show you what we just saw there. All right. So what we had there was a circle, right? Okay. All right. And then we had another circle. We had an outline. Now, if you want to create an outline, there are two ways you can do that. You either create another circle by copying and pasting. So I'm going to do Control C, then Control V. So I've pasted it. Now I'm going to enlarge this circle, and I pressed Alt and Shift to ensure that it increases on both ends. Okay, as opposed to just moving on one end. All right. So I'm going to press Option and Shift, increase. All right, and then I'm going to ensure that they are on the same, that they are aligned horizontally and vertically. All right. Now, if I position this, if I move this to the back, okay, and I change the color of this one that was here before to something, to white, or let's use this black because, so let me do this. Let me change the background color to gray, okay, and put the outline as white. All right. Now, what you see right now is a circle. It looks like a circle with an outline. All right. And you can achieve it by creating an outline, or you can actually achieve it by creating another circle outside the circle and then reducing the size or increasing it. Okay. Now, to create continuation, like we saw in that design, what we just do is impute a rectangle. All right. Okay. Now we change the color of this rectangle to black. Now you can see that because we simply change the color, these two elements look like they are one element. And it feels like the black is continuing as a shape outside the white. Yeah. And then let me go back to this. Right. So if you look here now, we have a white circle. Okay, I changed the position from here. So position to backwards. If you bring it forward, it will come up. If you take it backwards, it will go back. All right. Now, this looks like the black is continuing into the white. All right. Meanwhile, what we have are just 4 shapes. But how you arrange those shapes can create something entirely different. So that's the interesting thing about the Gestalt principles. It gives you a guide of how to understand how people see things. And then your job as a designer is to manipulate that to ensure that you make sure that your viewer sees what you want your viewer to see. All right. So here, we have proximity, like I already explained proximity to a large extent. And then here there's simplicity and then repetition. Okay. But I'd like us to just move forward because of time. We still have many other things to discuss. Okay, so there's proximity, common fit, continuity, similarity, closure, common region, symmetry. So there's a whole lot to read about Gestalt principles, all right? But because of time, I'm going to move on, all right? The second thing you want to consider is color, all right? And because how your work will be perceived by your target audience particularly depends on color. So any design that does not have the relevant color combination will not project the idea that you want it to have. For example, if I'm designing something for children, okay, and I have colors like this, right? Or let me use a harsher color. Right, colors like this won't necessarily appeal to kids because kids love things that are bright. So you would see people use things along the lines of yellow, right? Colors that are very bright, okay? And then when they have to mix colors, they would obviously use colors that pop, okay? You obviously be seeing more warm colors because you are appealing to children. All right, so before you design, you want to ensure that you have the colors that you want to use in mind. All right, depending on what you're trying to achieve, depending on who you're designing for. If it's a brand, you know that you're keeping your design in synchronization with what the brand already stands for. Okay, and having the color sense of your target audience in relation to the color of what you are designing is something that you must learn to do as a designer. All right. So I'm going to go over the color rule. Like I said, I was going to go over the color rule to explain it in detail. All right. Now, what you have here, yellow, blue, and red, like I explained the other day, are primary colors. Okay. And that's why we have them right in the middle, yellow, blue, and red. Primary, primary, primary. All right. And what you have is a mixture of 2 primary colors, blue and red. Primary and primary will give you a secondary color. That's why you see that the purple is right in the middle of the 2 primary colors. Same thing with green. Blue and yellow will give you a secondary green color, and then yellow and red will give you a secondary orange color. All right. And then I explained that the tertiary color will be a mixture of a secondary color and a primary color. All right. So what we have here as primary colors are yellow, blue, and red. All right. Secondary colors will be green, purple, and orange. And then we have all the other tertiary colors. All right. Because of time, I want us to move as quickly as possible. I know I've gone over this before, so this is just to refresh your mind. All right. Once again, this is the color wheel. So you see this two is a mixture of this. All right. The color of yellow and blue will give it green and all of that. All right. And I explained RGB and CMYK when I was explaining design terms. All right. I also explained grayscale, where you have, well, grayscale is basically from black to white. All right. But monochromatic colors or monochromes are colors when you increase the intensity of a color in a single hue. So if it's blue, you're going from light blue to dark blue to almost black or white. Okay. And I explained warm colors. Warm colors are bright colors. This is like the division line. Okay, so these colors you have here are warm colors, and then these ones you have here are cool colors. All right, sorry. So here we have the cool colors, and then here we have warm colors. Okay, so from red down to this lemon green, and then from green here down to violet. All right. I explained analogous colors as well as colors that are next to each other on the color wheel. So you see 1, 2, 3, right? They create a nice color palette. Okay, 1, 2, 3. And then we have this other 3 as well. 1, 2, 3. So you see how they make a nice palette. Complementary colors are colors that are opposite each other. Okay, so we have blue and orange. So we have blue and orange here. Green and red, we have green and red. Purple and yellow, we have purple and yellow. All right. Even these two colors, this and this, are opposite each other on the color wheel. So they are complementary colors. All right. And triadic colors are colors that are equally spaced apart on the color wheel. Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. You see, so once you have the exact same number of colors in between them, you would have a triad. All right. A split complementary, I wasn't able to explain a split complementary earlier. All right, so a split complementary is when you have one color, okay, and now instead of a split complementary, so you have complementary. So for example, purple is complementary to yellow, okay, but instead of using purple and yellow, you use purple and the color next to yellow on the left and the color next to yellow on the right. So that's why we have this color palette here. Okay, same thing here. If you do this, you select this color and then you pick 1 and 2. Okay, so that's what the split complementary is. So here, what you have here is this blue. Directly opposite this blue is orange. But instead of picking orange, we'll pick orangish yellow and yellowish orangish red. All right, so those are split complementary colors. Okay, color wheel again, in case you didn't understand it: primary, secondary, and tertiary. All right, I explained monochromatic, analogous, complementary, split complementary, triadic. Now I haven't explained tetradic. All right, and I just want you to know it because I mean you might never get to use it on hand, like directly, but it's good that you know it in case you are at a point where you're just like, what colors can I combine with this color? Okay, you have many options to choose from. Okay, if you want to go in triadic banner, triadic form, split complementary, analogous or complementary. If you want to do a monochrome, if you want to do a tetradic. Okay, now a tetradic colors are, it's like double split complementary or double complementary. So, when you have a complementary color, it's typically one color opposite each other, right? But in a double complementary, you have two colors with one color in between and the two colors opposite them. Okay? So those are tetradic colors. So you have blue opposite orange and then purple opposite yellow. Okay, now you pick blue, you pick purple, you jump over this, you go to the next one, and then you take the colors opposite both of them. And those 4 colors will create a tetradic or a double complementary color. All right. Now we're going to go into shape. Let me know if you're following so far. We've spent over 20 minutes. I hope I have not lost anyone.
Sorry to take you back. Please, I don't really understand the split complementary, triadic, and tetradic colors.
Okay.
Tetradic colors, yeah.
Okay, so see the split complementary. Watch closely, yeah? A split complementary. You understand what a complementary color is, yeah?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so when you have something like red and green, they are complementary colors, okay? Now, a split complementary color is, instead of picking the color opposite for example, if I'm referencing red, right? The complementary color to red is what?
It's green.
So let me use here. The complementary color to red is green, right? Because it's directly opposite.
Green.
If you want to do a split complementary, what you select is, instead of selecting green, you select the two colors that are beside green on the left and on the right. Did you get it?
Okay. Yes, I got that.
So what you have is red, what you have is red, yellow, green, and blue, green,
Okay.
instead of red and green. So for split complementaries, you don't have two colors, you have three colors, red and the two colors just beside the complementary color of red. Same thing for blue. So instead of picking blue and orange, what will you pick?
Blue, yellow, orange, and red, orange.
Exactly. So
Or
colors that you pick for if you're doing a split complementary. Okay. Now, a tetradic. All right. So let me explain tetradic now. Tetradic is, so if I'm referencing red and orange, for example. Okay. Are you watching closely?
yes, I am.
So red, I'm referencing red and orange. I'll pick the color opposite red, which is green. So in my color palette, what I will have is red, I would have green. Okay. Now I'm going to, because I'm starting from red, I'll jump over red, violet, and move straight to violet. Okay. And then I'll pick violet and the color opposite violet, which is what?
Yellow.
So how many colors will I have? 4 colors.
4 colors.
4 colors will be what?
Okay, red, violet, yellow, and green.
Exactly. So that's tetradic. Okay.
Okay.
Is it clear now?
Yes, it is. Thank you very much.
All right, welcome. So any other person lost at any point? Okay, so we're all good, right? So let's move over to shape. All right. Shape is like the skeleton of the thing you design. So you have to be sure to make it relevant to your design. Okay. And how do you ensure that your shape is relevant to your design? Like I said earlier, as a designer, your job is not just to push pixels and add shapes and all of that, to obey the complementary laws. There's a lot of research involved. Okay. So whatever cause you're designing for, whatever client you're designing for, whatever people you're designing for, there are many other considerations that we need to make as we go down the line. But I want to emphasize on shape before we proceed, okay? Because it's really, really important. So there are different types of shapes, obviously, and different shapes will connote different things. All right. So, like I said earlier, I want you to have an idea of how I go over my personal design growth. All right. So Google is your best friend. All right. Let me share my screen with you now. I'm going to open up a new tab on my browser. All right. So I'm going to go to Google. Okay. Now, as a designer, okay, by the way, there's a website that I want to recommend to everybody, 99 Designs. So 99 Designs is actually a website, or it's a website where you can actually hire designers. So designers can go on 99 Designs to say that I want to be a designer, so I'm going to be designing for people, so you can find a designer and all of that. But beyond that there's a huge amount of resources that you can learn from on this website. Okay, so what do I mean? Just come to their resources and go to designer resources. Okay, so here they'll teach you about how to work, how to join, 99 Designs and all of that. But this design blog is where I'm talking about. All right. You can join. Another way that you want to grow is by reading a lot. All right. So I'm going to open up the design blog. I'll open Discover, and then I'll open the design forum. Okay. Now, what you do here is, in a blog, what you do on a blog, you read. Okay. Now, reading is going to keep you updated because the more you read, the more you understand. The more you understand, the more you can apply. The more you can apply, the better you become. The better you become, the more clients you get. The more money you have. All of that. All right. So there's some level of self-development that is required for you as a designer. Okay. It's like with every other field. If you don't put in the work, you will not get any better. Okay. So if you open up the blog, for example, right, there are so many things that you can learn from. All right. How to create a website on GoDaddy, salon branding, five. For example, if you come to learn design, for example, right, you would see design basics. All right. So if you open design basics, you see literally so many things. Typefaces and fonts, what's the difference? Meaning of shapes in design, the principles of inclusive design, website mistakes and how to avoid them, how to edit a logo like a pro, techniques for showing off your mockup. I'm talking personally, I learned a lot from these websites personally. So see, Gestalt principles of design. There are many, many resources that you can learn from. All right. So in your spare time, feel free to go over there, read up on whatever you want to learn from. I'm going to reference this website again when we are going over types of logo designs. All right. When we're designing a brand, that'll be next week. Okay. But I just wanted to let you know this before I proceed. All right. So let me go to Google. Okay. Now, I want to understand, as a designer, I want to understand how do shapes affect people? And obviously, whatever affects people is called psychology. So what do? I'm going to Google psychology of shapes. Okay. Now, there are many resources that you find. I'm going through this to just let you know how I personally do it. So you don't think that I didn't study design anywhere. It's learning and applying over time. Okay. Now, so there are many, many, many resources that you can find. All right. So let me open this one by Disney. Okay. Psychology of shapes. And I'm sure you probably, maybe some of you had no idea that something like this existed, right? Now you do. All right. So this is NYX Ditech. Understand the psychology of shapes to design better. Okay. And you see how, for example, squares and rectangles, they're one of the most widely used shapes, right? And common meanings are discipline, strength, courage, security, and reliability. All right. Circles, ovals, and ellipses, you see that they have more sense of eternity because they have no beginning and end. There are many other details that I don't want to go into, but the common meaning that I want you to read up on yourself, actually, the common meaning will be eternity, female, universe, majestic, mystery, Then triangles, excitement, risk, danger, balance, stability. And the reason why at least you have an idea of risk or danger is, for cars, when cars break down, that shape that they use at the end of when they break down, it's a triangle, right? Spirals, growth, creativity, calmness, intelligence, abstract shapes, dual meaning of uniqueness, the duality of meaning, uniqueness, elaborates, all manner of things, okay? Natural shapes, originality, organic, balance, refreshments. And I'll show you how this applies, how this actually works in reality. So let's go to Pinterest and I'll show you, and you see the kind of things and how they refer. For example, let's Google organic farm design. All right, now look at this design. Okay, you can see there's no straight line here, and it's psychological because things that occur organically are usually not geometric in shape. Mountains are not geometric in shape. Things that occur organically are typically not geometric in shape. Okay, see, this is the logo of a farm. Like, you can even hardly see a straight line. for logos, I mean, it's quite different, but in terms of shapes and when you are using them in your design elements, okay, organic farm is actually going to show the farm. So organic design then. Okay, now you can see that there's literally no straight line in almost every design we've seen. Okay, here we can see some straight lines here. But beyond that, apart from that, you can see that all the shapes you are seeing here are curved, very irregular, very abstract, not too geometric. And even when they are geometric, they are not symmetrical. They are more asymmetrical, you know. Let me know if you understand what I've been trying to explain with shapes and the psychology of shapes so far. Hello?
I understand.
Okay, thank you, right? So you can see, now, imagine that we're designing for, let's say, a corporation, all right? Corporate design. Now, you can see the geometric shapes, very evident, right? You can see the squares and circles and the very, very geometric shapes, okay? And it's because these shapes have psychological effects. So there's a reason why when you're designing for children, you would have a different type of color entirely. When you're designing for a club, you would have a nightclub, for example, you have a different type of color, different type of fonts, and all of that. Okay, so I'm still going to get to fonts and typography, but I hope you understand so far what I've been trying to explain with shapes and how they work. All right, so the natural shapes and all these different shapes have their different effects. So I also did this because I want you to understand how you can learn by yourself. Okay, this class is not necessarily only to give you information, it's also to help you understand how you can learn to be a better designer, because I can't teach you everything, right? But if I teach you how you can learn, you stand a better chance of learning more by yourself. All right, so I'm going to close these tabs, and at least you have an idea and you know that there's such a thing as psychology of shapes. All right, and how they can be applied. Okay, so let me go back to Canva. Let me know if you can see my screen. Okay.
We can see it.
Awesome. So shapes can be meaningful, you know, it says a lot about your design, and it can be abstract as well, right? And white spaces are used to create a perceived series of silhouettes. All right, now typography. Before we go into typography, like I said earlier, let me show you now, because I explained psychology of shapes, right? And I forgot to show you psychology of color as well. So let me go over here. Now, like I said, there are things that you learn. I'll still share the slides with you so you will still have access to them, but let's go online and see, right? And I'm going to also show you on Pinterest how this applies, so you understand that it's something that occurs generally. Okay, so let me share my screen, my browser screen now. Let me know if you can see my screen. Okay, yeah, you can. Psychology of color, okay? Now, in case you didn't know there was such a thing, yes, there is such a thing, okay? And you can see the different colors and how they are applied. So red has a lot of excitement, strength, love. You know what? Let me reference one that actually has examples with popular brands. Okay, so look at this. Yellow does have a lot of optimism, warmth, clarity. All right, so you see brands that have yellow: Nike, Nikon, UPS, National Geographic, IMDb, Sprint, Subway, Shell, Best Buy, DHL, McDonald's. Okay, and here's an emoji to describe. All right, orange has a lot of cheerful, friendly, confident, and sometimes creative. Okay, you can see Nickelodeon, Hooters, Amazon, Payless, Fanta, all these brands. All right, excitement, yeah, red for excitement, Kellogg's, Nintendo, Coca-Cola, Virgin, Target, all of that. Then creative, trust, peaceful, balance. Now, I'm going to tell you, when we start to design a logo and we're trying to work on a brand identity for a brand, all these colors that we are trying to understand will come to play. Now, does it mean that every single brand in the world? Okay, I want you to pay attention to me now. Now, it doesn't mean that every single brand in the world follows this rule, in the sense that because I want to create an optimistic brand, right, my color is going to be yellow. Okay, and I'm also going to help you understand how the colors that brands use. For example, there are airline. Okay, let me explain to you this way. Two brands, all right, because many times people make the mistake of saying, okay, I want to design a brand for a delivery company, all right, and because delivery companies want to be reliable, so what do? Let me use a color that depicts reliability, all right, and what color would that be? Maybe gray or black, because it has, balance, peaceful, and or blue, because blue has a lot of trust, strength, dependability. All right, so I'm going to use color blue for my delivery company. All right, now it doesn't exactly work like that. For example, if you go online, you know what? If you go online and you Google, let me go online, right? Airline brands. Okay. Now, look closely at the airline brands. All right. Obviously the biggest airline brands. There are some colors that are quite very prevalent, right? Which is red. You can see red almost in every color, and there's also a lot of blue as well, right? Now, if you look here, okay, you can see that the difference is much wider. So we have brands, we have airlines that are yellow, we have airlines that are red, we have airlines that are blue, we have airlines that are black, we have airlines that are gray, we have airlines that are purple. Now, does it mean that these brands are not trying to show use the psychological color to depict the kind of brands that they will use? Not exactly, and I'll explain why. So a brand, okay, remember I explained what a brand is. A brand is literally depicting the ethos of what they believe. So I'm an airline company, all right. For example, Virgin is red, right? And Virgin is like plainly red, okay? And because the Virgin brand in itself is a brand that depicts excitement, right? Now, another brand that does the exact same thing of traveling people by air can pick a color blue because they want to depict that they are reliable, right? Does it mean that they don't know what they are doing? No. What it means is that different brands want to present themselves as different things, even when they offer the same service. So if, for example, let's use drinks, soft drinks, right? Coca-Cola and Pepsi, all right? Now, Coca-Cola as a brand centers their brand around friendships and relationships and fun and happiness. True, right? And you can tell because when they have their ads, for example, any Coca-Cola ads you see, right, you will most likely see, if you notice the catchphrase sharing happiness, right? They have people having fun, people laughing, people happy, people drinking, sharing cokes together. You hardly see one person drinking a coke alone in an ad, right? Because they are trying to depict fun, happiness, sharing, collaboration, happiness and all of that. Now, Pepsi, on the other hand, wow. Pepsi, on the other hand, right, as a brand, is depicting something else entirely. They are depicting an energetic brand, excitement. That's why, for example, Pepsi would have a lot of footballers on their ads, right? Coca-Cola would most likely not do that because they are targeting two different types of people, right? I'm not necessarily targeting two different kinds of people, but they are addressing two different types of things in people. So somehow anyone who is more friendship related, those kind of things, they would most likely lean towards Coca-Cola, right, as a brand. If we're assuming that they taste the exact same way as in Coke and Pepsi. As a matter of fact, you'd be surprised if you go online, you can check and see that many times people cannot tell the difference between Coke and Pepsi, right? And it sounds weird because that, like, it's difficult to understand, but it's the power of how brands can position themselves. Okay, but all of this just to say that the psychology of color, it's a thing that works, that is real, but it's not something that has to be applied verbatim or directly. You can't just slap a color on because, oh, I want it to look reliable. All right, there's more thinking that goes into what color is used to represent a brand. All right, now when you're designing and you're not designing for a brand, then you are free to use colors based on how they appeal to people. All right, but if you're working with a brand, you have to stick to the color of the brand. All right, let me know if you understand what I just explained. Let me know if it's well understood.
Yeah, understood.
Understood.
Awesome. Now, we have about 12 more minutes. So I'm going to go over the assignments that I'm going to give everyone. We'll continue in the next class from where we stopped. We're going to do typography. But before that, let me show you something else, right? Relating to color in terms of before you start to design. All right. So, like I said, you want to learn how to research. Okay. So when you're designing for anything, let's say you're designing for a delivery company, or let's say you're designing for a fashion brand, right? And you're trying to figure out what color should I use, right? You can actually just easily Google fashion brand color scheme. Now, what you're going to see is you're going to see many fashion brands, right? Many fashion brands, okay? But how do you determine, like I said earlier, even fashion brands can differ. There are fashion brands that want to pop like this. There are some other fashion brands that want to be dull like this, okay? So when I'm teaching on logo design, I'm going to go in depth into how we determine the character of a brand and all of that. Obviously, as a designer, you don't get to determine that, your client gets to determine that. So it's your job to help your clients express that in terms of design, okay? So now you want to be more specific, okay? What kind of brand are you? Is it a high-end luxury fashion brand? Is it an everyday streetwear fashion brand? So you want to be specific, all right? So let's use the word luxury, okay? Now, there's a little more difference in, okay, you know what? Remove color scheme. and just use luxury fashion brand. All right. Now you can see many logos of fashion brands. Okay, but this might be misleading. All right. So let's use color. All right. So now this is obviously a luxury brand, right? And you can see the colors that they use. They use a lot of goldish, right? And then dark blue. Okay. Here you can still see this shade of gold evidently here. All right. Here we can see some shades of gold that are not exactly golden. They are on two ends of gold, right? Here you can still see here we have this leather color, right? Which is more close to gold than any other color actually, right? Now that points to, okay, here they use black and gold, right? Now the question you want to ask yourself is, as a designer, if I want to design something that I want to look luxurious, it doesn't mean that you have to use gold as your main color. It means that you want to have it, you either want to use gold, you can feel free to use gold as your main color, but you want to ensure that you have a touch of gold, right? And it doesn't have to be gold actually, because gold is not the only color that you can use to express luxury. Some luxury brands have only black and white, right? And there are still many other elements that you can use to express luxury. The type of fonts that you use, I'm going to explain that in the next class when we're discussing typography. The kind of fonts that you use, the amount of space that you have. For example, luxurious brands actually don't cramp up their space. You see there's a lot of space. Many times in the text, you see most luxury brands have space in their text as opposed to cramping up the text, right? And all these things are basic psychology of typography, which I'm going to discuss in the next class, obviously. All right. So, but I just want to help you understand how it is that as a designer, right, what you are designing for is going to determine the kind of tools, the kind of colors, the kind of fonts, the kind of shapes. Now, for luxury brands, if you look closely, you notice that, okay, let me share my screen again. So you know what? Let me actually go on Pinterest. You stand a better chance of seeing interesting things on Pinterest. All right. Now, let me do color scheme or color palettes. Okay. Now, if you look closely, you'd see that you have a mix. We have a mix of you. Okay, I might be going ahead of myself, right? But let me stick to color now, right? You see that we have a lot of nude colors, and we have a lot of gold-related colors, right? And in terms of texts, you can see that we have a lot of serif fonts and script fonts. You will hardly see any luxury fashion brand that uses a sans serif, right? And I'll explain why in the next class when we're discussing psychology of colors, of typography, all right? And the reason why you want to do this is like when we go over in the next class, I'm still going to explain why you want to get a mood board before you actually start designing, all right? But all of this just to say that before any output comes out, there is a lot of thinking that goes into it, all right? You have to pay attention to everything from your color, to your fonts, to your text, to your type, to literally everything that you need to do. All right. Now, let me go over, before we close, let me go over, let me save this image to download. Let me go over what was discussed in what we had, what we discussed in the last class when I was talking about so this is the Polkadot assignment, right? And the question was, how do we import an image, right? And I explained that first, let me just share my desktop. Okay. First, remove the BG. Yeah. And once you upload the image or remove the BG, right, you have to click. You can either drag and drop the image or upload. So I'm just going to drag and drop. All right. Now, once it's done and the background has been removed, you have to download the image. You can't copy the image. If you copy the image, it's not going to work. Okay. You have to download. So you have to click download. When you download, your file is going to appear in wherever you, most likely your download files, download folder. All right. And then you go to Canva. All right. And then you come to uploads, right? You can upload them here from upload media, or you can drag and drop. So once you go to upload media, you find the image that you uploaded and then you open. Okay. Once you open, it's going to appear here. And once it appears, you can select it and then you have your image without the background. Okay. As simple as that. I hope this is clear.
Yes.
Okay, good. All right. So that's basically it. You can either do that or you can just drag and drop from your location, wherever your location is. You can drag and drop it into Canva and it's going to appear. But you need to download the file first instead of copying and pasting. All right. Are we good so far? Any questions? Any things that might not be clear from all the things that I explained so far in today's class? Nothing. All right. Okay. So right now I'm going to share our assignments with us. And this time I'm not going to do it before the class. I'm just going to share the assignments and we'll have to try our hands on it. All right, because of time. I don't want to take more time than usual. All right, so I'm going to share the assignment on the group and everyone will take a stab at it. Now, what we're going to do from next class is that at the end of the class, I'll go over some of the assignments. All right, so I'll go over the assignments that were submitted. I'll be making corrections and changes and comments based on what was submitted. All right, so but that will be from past 10. All right, so once the class ends by 10 o'clock is when I start doing that because I don't want that to interfere with the time that we've designated for the class. All right, so I hope we're all fine with that.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
So yes, that's it. Thank you, everyone. I'll upload the video and then I'll upload the assignment on the WhatsApp group and we'll be good to go. Please try to do your assignments. The more you do them, the better you become. All right. And feel free to reach out to me if you have any feedback on how the classes have been so far. I'm ready to take feedback at this point. All right. Thank you, everyone. Have an amazing, amazing night.